Captain Matt here with Captain's Quarters First Class, a podcast from the Lighting Trade School. I've been having a lot of calls. It's the end of July here. We're going into August. A lot of talk about Christmas lighting. And just want to talk about that today. Christmas lighting, setting goals, what's reasonable, what's expected, and all of that. Because I was talking to somebody who wanted to do $150,000 in their pocket this Christmas, coming from not having a ton of, maybe $50,000 worth of work total, now wanting to do $150,000 in their pocket. And I think it's great. And you've heard me talk about, they're called stretch goals, all that. We call them impossible, right? What in the world that I'm living, it's called the impossible game, right? We have we have reasonable, radical, and impossible, right? So there's a reasonable goal if things continue on as normal. What's a radical goal that makes my butt pucker a little bit? And then what's the impossible, which seems and is impossible in this moment today? And it's called impossible because you have to become somebody new to reach that goal. So when you're setting a goal and you, let's say you're doing 50,000 in revenue total in Christmas, and then this year you want to do $150,000 in profit in your pocket, you have to become a different person than who you are right now to reach that, because that's a huge leap. That's not just 3x. It's what you're looking for in your pocket is 3x your revenue of the year prior. So what systems do you have in place? What processes do you have in place? Who are you going to have to hire? Who do you have to become? Are you going to be out decorating? Are you going to be out doing the sales? Are you going to be driving around everybody? Are you going to try to do both? What does the storage look like if you're going to go from 50,000 in revenue to probably about 450,000 in revenue to make that 150 in your pocket? If it's a nice clean year, right? You have to factor in all the storage costs, because that's going to go up. Because if you're doing 30 homes and now you're going to be doing 150 homes, chances are you're not going to be able to keep it in the same facility. If you're keeping it in your garage, you're going to overflow that garage. You're going to need to rent a place. If you're renting a 10 by 20 storage unit, you're going to rent another 10 by 20, or maybe 4 more. At one point when I was moving offices, I think I had 13 or 14 10 by 20 storage units to hold me over until I was moving into the new place. Right? That's a real cost. That it's not just, oh, I want to make money. There has to be, it's great to have a goal and say, I want that, but what's the method to get there? Because the method to get there is what is actually going to make it happen. Just wanting it does fuck all. Doesn't help you. Setting a huge ass goal usually doesn't do anything besides discourage you when you don't hit it. So you have a goal of making 150,000. Even if you do fucking massive wins and you hit $75,000 in profit, chances are you're still going to feel like a failure, because you have set this unreasonable goal in your head and you didn't hit it. But you also didn't act like that's the goal you wanted to hit. Right? Saying you want $1 million in Christmas lighting or $1 million outdoor lighting company, you have to do much more than just say it and want it. There are things that has to be done. There are processes that have to be made. All of this, like, how do you handle an incoming call? What do you do when someone says, I want a quote? What do you do when someone says, I'd like to proceed with this quote? What do you do when someone says no? What do you do when someone says maybe later? What do you do when someone says, I need to talk to the husband, wife, whatever? What if someone says, call me next year? What do you do? If you don't have these guidelines and rules set up, you need to start making them now. Every time you get a call and every time you're doing anything for the business, write down exactly, step by step, exactly what you're doing, because you are not going to be able to fill that role if you don't have a process. The person's not going to know what to do. You're going to have to teach them little by little, every single little thing. And I know this from experience, because hiring, right? When I hired my first field ops, when I hired my first operations manager, my assistant, my sales manager, I didn't have anything written down. I had to spend time with them, teaching, training, educating on how I did things, how I wanted things done, what the future looked like for me, and how I wanted everything to lay out. It took massive amount of training. and my time because I didn't have anything for them to follow. And then what would happen is that, uh, this crew lead would do a job one way, that crew lead would do a job one other way, and then the third crew lead would do it a totally different way. So there wasn't that consistency across the board. So, that's an example for Christmas. We would go out to do a fix request. And if you have three different crews doing it three different ways, even the fixes take longer because you have to figure out how they did that job. That is not the crew lead's fault. That was not my technician's fault. That's my fault for not having something clear as day. This is exactly what we do, which we have now, right? You get to the job site, you put the music player out, you introduce yourself to the client, you unpack the product. Like it's all laid out. Boom, 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 boom. Right. There's no doubt. So now when you forget something, if you don't put a yard sign out, if you don't do a 7 around, now you have no excuse because we have a process in place that's easy to follow and there's a checklist. So, well, before I had that, there's no way they could follow it because I would tell them, hey, don't forget to do boop, 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 boop. And then they would forget. Or I would tell them to do these 6 things, and really there was 8 things they should have done, and I didn't tell them to do those other 2. Obviously, they're not going to do the 2 things I did not tell them to do because they didn't know to do them. So, right, that was negative on my behalf. I have to take responsibility for that to change it. So writing down, even like when I place an order for gemstone lights, right? Like I think it's like a 7-page document of what we do from incoming call, speaking to the client, going to the house, getting deposit, getting the color readings, putting it into our spreadsheet, putting it into a company cam checklist, making the order arriving, packing the order, installing, doing the final walkthrough. Like there's a lot, but there's a process so that no matter who comes on, when they come on, they can follow it. And there's the expectation because it's very easy with no process in place to follow written down. It has to be written down so someone can review it and look at it when they need to. They are going to do the job how they think they should, how they see fit. And then you will have your employees running your company, and the company will change into something you never expected it to, something that you never wanted it to, because it's not your business anymore. You just happen to own it. It's not yours. It's being run by the employees how they see fit. So when you set these massive goals, they're great. Obviously, I'm a believer in them. You need them, but you need to have, once you set this impossible game, how do you achieve it? You have to then look, who is the man or woman I have to become to be the guy who's looking and sitting at $150,000 profit? Because right now I'm sitting at $7,000 profit. It's not the same man. It's not the same woman that can achieve $150,000 profit versus, 7. That's different. There's different mindsets that happen. There's different employees that have to be hired. There's different processes that have to be made to do that work, right? There's, especially when we're looking at Christmas, when there's only this little bit of time to get all the work done, right? You're not doing Christmas lights in March and April, unless you're doing takedowns and there's bad storms. Excuse me. So it's super important that you look at what is a reasonable goal first. Well, then what is a radical where you step it up maybe 5 times, and then an impossible where you're stepping up like 10, 15 times, because it helps your brain logically think through the steps needed. Because you need steps. So if you want to go from $7,000 profit to $150,000 profit, look at yourself, look at the business. What has to change? Obviously, you need more leads, because so how are you going to get the leads? What does your marketing have to look like? When you get a lead, what does that incoming call sound like? What do you talk about? If, Joe S calls you on Tuesday at 3 and Bill B calls you Monday at 2, do they get the same spiel? Do they get the same information? If you decorate somebody on Monday and then you decorate someone on Tuesday, are they getting the same experience? So if your client refers someone to you and they say, oh my God, this was the greatest experience ever. These guys were so good. They were on time. They did this, they did that. And then you go do that referral customer or client, and you don't offer that same level of service, and they have a whole different experience. Well, they're going to call their friend, but what the hell is this? Like, this is nothing like you described. And if you don't think that's happening, you're just lying to yourself, because 100% it is happening. So super important that everyone gets the same experience. And the only way that people can get the same experience is having the process. And you hear this word talked about in all Facebook posts and in all groups, right? You need process, you need process. Well, what the fuck does that even mean? A process, a good way of looking at it is like a checklist or a written document. These are literally the steps we take for every single thing we do. This is how we answer the phone. This is how we leave a voicemail. This is what we say when we text. This is the text message that we text. This is what we do for scheduling. This is the message the client gets. This is what we do for onboarding. This is the email the client gets. This is what we do when we arrive on a site. This is what we do when we're done for the day. This is what we do when we're done with the job. This is the email. This is the phone call they get when they're done with the job. This is the follow-up email, phone call a week later. This is the schedule when it's a takedown. Everything is written out. So you do all this work up front to set yourself up for success. Well, what else are you doing in your business, right? How much time do you spend responding and looking at email, right? Do you find yourself, going down black holes of emails? So when you start writing down everything you're doing, right? And I encourage you every time you're working on your business to write down every single thing you're doing and how, in what steps, in order, and be super fucking granular, more granular than you think is needed, right? Like click upper left-hand hamburger button, a drop down will appear, then click view, whatever the case might be, right? That's how detailed you have to be, so that if you want to take a brand new employee and put them in that, to take that off of your shoulders and that responsibility away from you so that you can focus on sales or growth or whatever you want to focus on, that being done allows them to just have it and know exactly your expectations. Because setting expectations isn't just with your clients and customers. Setting expectations must be done with the people that are working for you and working with you to grow something, right? Many of you guys who are small get these guys on because they're excited. They're excited at your excitement. And it's not fair to them that you bring them on and you literally have set them up for failure. They don't know what is expected. They don't know a process. They're doing literally the best damn job that they can do. And if it's not what you want, then you think they're bad or they're not good employer. Why aren't they doing it right? I mean, and that's another great thing. If you find yourself often saying, oh my gosh, my employees just do what they want and they're not doing it right, I would bet that you don't have a process in place. I would bet that process only lives in your head. And I would bet that your employees have no idea of that process expectation that you have on them. So writing it down, most of you guys use Company Cam. Doesn't matter what you use, but Company Cam has these built-in checklists, right? And we use those checklists. Arrival, they have to check the box. I arrived on site. What time? They type in the time. Who was there? Yard sign, music. Introduce yourself to the client. Unpack. Do this. Do that. Right. All of that can go right into Company Cam to make it super easy for you. Or you can print them out. If your guys are always phones dying and all that jazz, then just get them printed out. Give them not a binder or a clipboard, whatever, with the checklist right there, and give them enough checklists for every job they're going to do today. When you want to literally more than 10x what you're doing, you're going to have to 10x the expectations you have across the board on yourself, on your employees, and on your clients. And the beauty of it is that expectation is set by you, but you have to make sure people know what that is. And when I say, what do you mean clients' expectations? Well, if you call someone up, I was talking to somebody that went out and did a site visit for somebody. They thought they wanted one thing. It turns out they didn't want it at all. They wanted something totally different that they didn't even offer. That's wasted. It was like a wasted 2.5 hours with travel time and walking around. Did they make a relationship? Sure. Is it ever going to turn into anything? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is on that first call, the client didn't even expect, right? They wanted line voltage lighting, and clearly this person didn't do line voltage. So it's not the client's fault that you wasted your time. That's 100% your fault that you wasted that time. Like, if they call up for a service that you offer, have a conversation about that service. I'm not saying that that you're not going to go visit them. It's not just about pre-qualifying their budget. You have to pre-qualify what the fuck they're actually looking for. I've done it myself. right? I get excited about a call for outdoor lighting. I go and they're looking for a chandelier, or they're looking for driveway post lighting that is 110. That's not their fault that they did that to me. That's my fault. Talking about lighting, and we didn't even talk about exactly what they're looking for, right? So the same thing with Christmas, right? We set the expectation of, hey, these are my averages. This is everything that I offer, right? I have a video that goes out to everybody once I talk to them or once I leave them a message, right? It's an automation. And it's about 5-7 minute video. It talks about everything that we do for Christmas. I have the same thing for Gemstone. I have the same thing for landscape lighting, right? It talks about what we do, what is to be expected, what the process looks like, all of that, so that they are able to have a super well-informed idea of what we do and what to expect. So there's no way someone who watches that video is going to think that we do line voltage electric, right? They watch that and they're able to have our lingo down and our terminology down because we have informed them and educated them on what we do. That video saves me a ton of time. Again, it's an automation, but saying the same thing over and over when you answer the phone is fine. But that 5 to 7 minutes where you can really get in nitty gritty and go over, this is a branch wrap, this is a candy cane wrap, this is a spritzer in a tree, this is a spritzer on a path, this is a multicolored roof line, this is a warm white roof line. All the different things you do, it allows them to really dive in and watch it on their own time rather than just on the phone. So obviously have the phone call, but that allows you to build that expectation up with them. They know what you offer. Because again, if you wanted more than 10x what you're bringing home, that's 20x what you're bringing home. You have to have all these, things in place. And it also helps you upsell, right? Because if someone doesn't know you do spritzers and trees and sees it, or they only are calling you about a roof line and they see you do branch wrap trees or candy cane wrap trees, right? It's like, ooh, actually, I really like that. I have a great tree out front or out back or whatever the case might be. So not only do these processes allow you to give the same experience across the board, it allows you to upsell every single client, or at least present an upsell without having to actually get into pricing their job of that upsell and all that. Just get them excited, plant the seed so they know everything you offer. So again, so when you're setting these big goals, who do you have to hire too, right? Can you do it yourself? Can you do $150,000 in your pocket Christmas lighting by yourself? No. I mean, sure, you get some home run clients or whatever, and you could do it. But that's the 0.01%. So you're going to have to hire. Who are you going to have to hire? Are you going to work 8 days? Right? You're going to work 7 days a week? Or is it just a side hustle? You're working after work and on the weekends. What does that look like? Do you have both weekend days? Like, you have to be realistic with yourself, because if you set an impossible goal, an impossible game goal, and you think you can just work 2 days a week and hit that, like, you're lying to yourself. You're setting yourself up for massive failure, and you're setting yourself up to actually get out of the industry completely and say it doesn't work. Most guys in Christmas last 2 to 3 years. They don't listen. They don't plan. They don't have processes. They think it's all easy money, and the sales for Christmas are easy. It's probably the easiest thing to sell in the world. Everyone knows it. There's a built-in deadline, all of that jazz. But to run your business and have those processes, that's what keeps you going. That's what allows you to scale if that's what you want to do. And if you don't want to scale and just want to make as much profit as possible off the smallest amount of work, the only way you do that is having the processes down, the written documentation of how every single thing in your company is done. Then looking at that, figuring out what you can automate and who and what roles, what responsibilities should be hired out to somebody who can do it better than you. What is the least favorite thing that you like to do in your company? Is usually a great first hire. We can argue about what should be your first hire, but as you're starting out, hiring someone to do the things that you hate the most is usually really good, because it allows you to focus on what you enjoy doing, which always has a positive benefit mentally, and your mental benefit affects the company. You make more money, all that jazz. So don't overthink it when you're doing this, but with that process, you can literally write out, okay, here's my process for incoming calls. And you can put this all in a spreadsheet or write it down on a whiteboard, whatever the case might be. And you can look at it piece by piece. If I had an assistant, what would they do? If I had a sales manager or a sales rep, what would they do? What roles and responsibilities, now that I have all these things that we do across this company, what would they do? If I had a technician, what would they do? If I had a field ops manager, what would they do? If I had an operations manager, what would they do? if someone came and took my role, right? As I say, you're probably the worst boss in the world to work for. With everything that you do for your company right now, 60, 70 hours a week, or maybe you're working full time and you're grinding it out when you get home. Would you ever go to work for somebody else to make no money, right? Or pay yourself $7,000 for the year? Oh, of course not. It's horrible. So when you look at everything that you're doing as a whole, how much would it cost? Or is it even possible to find somebody out in the wild and hire them to do everything you're doing at a cost that's not more than the revenue that you're doing total in your business for the year? So breaking it out like this allows you to see all the different buckets. Okay, a salesperson could do this, a technician would do this, an assistant would do this, an office manager would do this, you know, a president would do this, a vice president would do this, and allows you to see it. Even though I'm not telling you to hire all those people, but see it, right? That's part of your impossible game, impossible goals. See it. What would it look like if you had the company right now doing the revenue that you wanted to do and the profit you wanted to do? What would that company look like? I find it a very fun exercise that I do every few years. What would my business look like? These are the roles. These are who reports to who. And it's not names. It's just titles and responsibilities. The only way I'm able to do that is because I know everything that every member of the team does. So it allows me to say, this is if I was doing everything I wanted to do, this is the full staff, the warehouse manager, the warehouse associate, the mechanic, all of this stuff, because I write down everything that we have to do, right? Like even running back and forth, having a runner could save you so much money and time, but you don't realize how much time you're spending running. When you keep track of, you show up to a job, let's say you show up at 8 a.m., then you have to run to Home Depot. That's always an hour or two. Then you forgot something back at the office or at the garage, whatever. You got to run back. There's a lot of times you work an 8 or 10-hour day where you're actually like 2 to 3 hours on site. And when you start looking at that, you're like, well, geez, I can get a $15 to $20 an hour runner. So every time I forget something or a crew forgets something, they can run. And I don't have that windshield time. I can continue working. It's massively valuable. So if you keep track of all that time you're spending driving around doing the running around, you may be and you will be surprised at how much time a week, especially if you do this over 3-4 weeks, you continually keep track of everything you do for the day on the business. You'll say, holy shit, I am spending a working day or a working 2 days just running shit around because we're forgetting something. And then why are you forgetting something? That means you don't have a process. You don't have a checklist for load out or load up in the morning. Right. So all of these things. So I encourage you guys, let's do the impossible games. Let's figure out the reasonable, radical, and impossible. But then look at who you have to become and who your company has to become to actually achieve those. Because just having them won't do you any damn good. All right. This has been Captain's Quarters First Class, a podcast from the Lighting Trade School. I'll see you guys next week. Now go make some damn money.